Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to fix the engine on my $1,800 G37. My name is Jeremy, this is Region Automotive, and let's get to work. So before we jump into the work, I'll explain a little bit on what's going on with the situation. If you haven't watched the video of me picking it up, I recommend that you do that now. It's a fun little video of me revealing the car, and we do a walk around and what's wrong with the car. But for now, we have it in the background there on the trailer, and we're gonna drag it in, get it up on jack stands, and then we'll start working on the timing chain, which is the main thing wrong with the engine. Just a reminder, if you have a G37, do not close the hood if your latch is disconnected. It'll take you about an hour, hour and a half of messing around to get the hood open. Ask me how I know. Now that we have the whole hood debacle sorted, we're gonna jack it up as high as we can on jack stands. So I've learned a couple things since I was last under there. It has a Z1 aluminum skid plate, which is kind of cool. All right, so far this is going better than expected. Knock on wood or plastic or aluminum, don't wanna speak too soon. Well, got some good news and some bad news. I just found the first flaw, I guess, of essentially dropping this whole engine. Now let's get the variable valve timing covers off. Then I guess we'll start getting all the timing cover bolts off and get this cover off and see what's going on. Well, I was getting worried because I didn't see any carnage yet until I saw this. Yeah, I'll just go ahead and show you. Okay, so if you look at the tensioner, let's see if you can see in there. Yeah, look at that, that's crazy. So that's the driver's side bank. There's no guide on the top of that tensioner. That rear change is wore into that tensioner. That is not good. This is a good time to remind you guys to subscribe, so next time I can buy an actual running and driving G37 instead of this pile behind me. That would explain a lot of the misfire issues he's having. And then also another thing that concerned me was the mechanics found oil. I hope they find oil in the engine. They found metal in the oil, so I was getting a little concerned, because if you've been watching my channel, I deal with all those stupid Kias with the rod bearings, and I had that yellow Kia. I didn't record that, but it was the pistons were wearing into the block, so I was getting a little worried, but that would explain where the metal is coming from, because the top of that tensioner is just chewed right up. So I'm gonna continue getting this cover off, and then we will take a full look here. And then luckily I bought a whole timing set on it that comes with all the tensioners, front and back chains, so everything will be nice and fresh. So I have the timing cover off, and so far I don't see any other damage besides that one tensioner that I showed you guys earlier. So again, you can kind of, let me get the light on here. You can just, yeah, that's just crazy. I've never seen a guide fall off the tensioner like that. So that's, again, all your timing chain issues, misfire, whatever, like that's a very obvious failure to me. And then yeah, the guides, everything else looks good. So in the oil pan, there's this one piece of metal. I'm assuming that was off the top of that tensioner, like that's where the, yeah, like it goes on that top of that tensioner plunger, and then the plastic guides on top. Got some good news and some bad news. Good news is I've found my failure. That's where that top metal piece was there, if you can see it behind my fat fingers. But yeah, there's that plastic guide on there, and that just wore, broke or whatever, and then the chain just wore enough into the metal until it took that ring right off. So yeah, that's the plunger from the tensioner there. So there's the failure, and all that metal is just, again, coming from the top there, and then there's a bit of wear in the cover there. So I'm pretty confident that this engine is going to be good. Bad news is, kind of found overall things have been there's been a lot to work on this car, but they've come off, like it hasn't been too too complicated. Like I would say it's been tedious, but not too hard to work on. But I just found the first flaw, I guess, if I wanted to complain, is the tensioner hangs over and the bolts are underneath the cam caps for the rear tensioners. I watched like 5 DIY videos online and no guys touch these rear tensioners, probably for that reason. So that's the bad news, is I got a lot more work for myself to get to those bolts. Oh yeah, I tried to see if I could get like back that bolt off, but it's just hitting the top there. That's just not going to be a smooth install. And then this one's starting to strip out using the open end of the wrench, so I'm just not even going to create that headache for myself. Just suck it up, get the work done, get the intake off, rear timing cover, valve covers, and then I'll be able to properly get those tensioners off. Update time. So last time we left off, I was telling you about the tensioner there and the bolt that was getting stuck on the cam tower. How I got the tensioners out is that bolt was hitting the cam tower. So I'm like, all right, take off the valve covers, take the cam tower off, no problem. That's a little bit extra work, but whatever. And there's these variable valve timing motors on the back of the cam towers, and there's a couple bolts that go into the back of the head and a couple bolts that go into the cam tower, and there's like next to no room there. I've watched like 10 videos online. I haven't seen a single guy replace those without the engine of the car, and I really did not want to do that. So what I did is I threaded the bolt all the way up until it was running into the bottom of that cam tower, and then I covered everything very nicely with rags there. Then I took a Sawzall and I cut the head of the bolt off, and then I just put some needle nose on the bolt and just threaded it until it's fully threaded out. And then I got both of these tensioner assemblies out. Well, something went as planned for once. So I went to the hardware store and I got a 35 millimeter long bolt. Here's our old one, 40 mil long, so it's 5 mil longer there. And I just shaved off on the bench grinder of the 35 mil bolts, like not much, like just a couple hairs, like maybe a mil or something. So if I go here, I now can slide this bolt under the cam tower there. And then, so I'm gonna put the bolt in the tensioner, and then I'm gonna slide the assembly in the cam tower there, and then I'll have that much thread sticking out of the bottom, so that's plenty to clamp down on that tensioner. So I'm very happy with that little trick, because essentially that more or less saved me from dropping the engines. I'm happy to say that I got the 2 bolts installed on that tensioner, got the 2 bolts installed on that tensioner. With that trick that I said, I just ground down the end of those bolts slightly just so I could get them under with the tensioner. And then I modified a 10 millimeter wrench here, the closed end. I modified that so I had the plunger up before, but then I could get the wrench and actually tighten it and get some torque on there. So it's all snug and the threads are biting. So yeah, it's all good. I'm very happy with that fix. Saved myself a lot of work there. So next I'm gonna start assembling everything. So I'm gonna put the rear timing cover on, and then I'll do my chain, front timing cover, valve covers, all that stuff. So let's get her going. I am happy to say that the timing chain is on and the timing's all set. I'll show you here. I also replaced my gallery or galley gasket, whatever you want to call it. I got a metal one, which is nice, and then I got those Allen screws there, torqued those all up, so that's nice. New one down there. And then, yeah, so I replaced, this was the guide. So funny story, literally did this whole job just because this one guide broke. But anyway, that's replaced, that's in. And then for the secondary chains, you line up the 2 orange links with the line there. Then on the back side, let's see if you can see in camera. Yeah, you can just, yeah, there you go. That orange link lines up with the dot on the phaser there. Same story on that side. That one's a little bit harder to see, but it's lined up. Those 2 line up with the dot since it's passenger side instead of the lines. And then, yeah, I really like these timing chains where the links are colored and they correspond with a mark on your gears. I've done lots of timing belts, especially Audis, where their marking is just guess and check. Essentially, it's like the line is lined up like with the cover. It depends on which angle you look at it. I did the timing belt on a Audi S3, same thing as the TT. They literally had like a little plastic cover that you took off the transmission bell housing and lined up the flywheel with there, and that was top dead center. Like, that was crazy. But anyway, I like these timing systems where you have the colored link and it lines up at the dot, because then you know 100% that it's lined up. That one's lined up. Orange lined up with the mark on the crank gear there. So let's pull the pin together. You ready? 3, 2, 1. That's the pin pulled. Get that plastic spring holder out of there. Yeah, our timing is done. Before I start putting things together here, I must say with how impressed I am with the cleanliness of this engine. Literally, I haven't cleaned anything, and there's not one spot of sludge. Like, literally, it's just fresh oil. There's no sludge built up at the bottom of that head. Like, that's really good. That's probably the best I've seen for a car with this mileage. It's got 226 kilometers on it, so this many miles. Kudos to shout out to the previous owner, Steve, again, for taking such great care of the car. Thanks for that. All right, peeps, I got her mostly assembled. She's just bleeding off now. Heat's starting to get hot, so that's good. Yeah, so it's just doing its final bleed here. I'll wait until there's all the bubbles, and then why don't we take it for a drive? I've been running the car for a little bit. Like I said, I think I have it bled off. Apparently you got to reset the airbag light after having the battery disconnected, or maybe there's an airbag sensor unplugged or something. So anyway, I'm going to reset that later. Seatbelt light, that's fine. That little triangle is just to warn you that you're low on washer fluid. Other than that, she runs pretty good. Runs really good. And I'll show you why we can't take it for a drive and why I'm going to call the video pretty quick here. So if I put it in drive, I have to rev it up a little bit to move. Reason being is I ran the car, I was too excited, so I ran the car when the transmission lines were disconnected from the radiator, and it must have, I thought it was only like half a liter or something, but it must have thrown like 2 liters of fluid on the ground, so it's low on fluid. And of course, this doesn't have a normal dipstick where I can just add fluid to. It has that funnel you have to get in the transmission pan. The fluid looked kind of dirty anyway, so I want to flush it, but I can't drive it until I change the fluid. So yeah, and that's not going to happen today, so I'm going to call this video here, and we'll have to drive it next video. Alright guys, that's my video of fixing the engine on my $1,800 G37. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and have a good day.